So at the time that I'm recording this video, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has just passed away. She passed in her home, surrounded by her family, due to complications with pancreatic cancer, which is something that she had fought off into remission multiple times in her 87 years. My condolences to her family members and those that cared about her, because setting politics aside, this is one of the most deadly cancers that anybody could possibly have, and this woman had beaten it multiple times throughout her life in order to serve as a Supreme Court Justice. She was actually on chemotherapy at certain points while she was still reviewing cases. You gotta give respect where respect was due. Now, obviously, that's not what you guys have come here for. This is a political channel, so of course you want to know what I think the political implications of her passing actually are. And first and foremost, the Republicans are in no way, shape, or form going to hold to that rule that they held Barack Obama to about not confirming a Supreme Court nominee when there's a presidential election X amount of days away. If I have this right, I believe Ginsburg's passing is closer to the 2020 election than Antonin Scalia's passing was to the 2016 election. Look, we all know that the Republican Party was blocking Antonin Scalia as an election wedge issue. The whole thing about the president not picking a nominee so close to the election was just marketing. It was just PR. The Republicans control the Senate, Supreme Court justices need to be confirmed by the Senate, and the Republicans felt like after decisions like DC versus Heller or McDonald versus Chicago, that if they let Obama fill that seat, then the Second Amendment and other conservative priorities would be no more forevermore in our American history. So obviously they were holding up Garland, who was a more moderate choice by Barack Obama because they wanted to confirm him in the lame duck session if Hillary had won. But just in case they could get that nominee to their guy, Donald Trump, they wanted the chance to fill Scalia's seat with somebody who is more like Scalia. So we all know that the Republicans aren't going to hold to that. This isn't a situation where the Republicans don't control the Senate. The only possible way for the Democrats to get this nominee away from Trump is if they control the Senate. They don't. So somebody is going to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Trump is going to put somebody up, and they're going to have hearings before the election. And possibly this confirmation might extend into the lame duck session of Congress. So Trump might get a Supreme Court nominee as he's walking out the door if this turns out to be something that leads to him losing the election. Which, by the way, I have said time after time that the moment that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passes away, that's when you're going to see the far left at their absolute craziest. Because Trump has already nominated 2 Supreme Court justices, but the people that he replaced were appointed by Republicans, and even though Kennedy was way more wishy-washy than Antonin Scalia on conservative issues when he ruled as a justice, Trump responded in kind by putting the more moderate Brett Kavanaugh on the bench to replace him. Now we have an unabashed progressive that has passed away with Donald Trump in the White House. An unabashed female progressive that's death will lead to Trump's 3rd appointment to the Supreme Court during just his first term in office. The left is going to go berserk over this. They're going to point out the hypocrisy of the whole Merrick Garland, Antonin Scalia, Neil Gorsuch thing. They're going to flip out and say that this is the end of the world. That even if Trump loses, his administration's effects will extend on the country throughout the decades. And it looks like, from what I can read from the situation very early on, that the justice that Trump is looking to appoint to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg is Amy Coney Barrett, because he wants to have a woman fill a woman's seat, even though he's filling that seat with a far more conservative woman than his other 2 Supreme Court nominees. Maybe not more conservative or more constitutionalist than Gorsuch, but definitely more conservative than Brett Kavanaugh, who's basically another Justice Roberts on the bench, pretending to be a conservative. I know we're all hyped on Kavanaugh because the left-wing media smeared him in all kinds of crazy ways in order to keep him off the Supreme Court bench, but Kavanaugh was a moderate, pretty crappy choice by Donald Trump by conservative constitutionalist standards before all the craziness came forward. So the fact is, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Donald Trump from the right to appoint somebody that is more in the mold of the justices like Clarence Thomas, Antonin Scalia, and Neil Gorsuch was supposed to be, not a moderate, wishy-washy Roberts Kavanaugh type. Amy Coney Barrett fits that role perfectly, and she's a woman, so a lot of the attacks against her from the media can be painted by the right as sexist, even though that's not really a good workable strategy for right-wingers to use against the left-wing media, because they'll call Amy Coney Barrett, who is unabashedly pro-life, gender traitor and all that nonsense. They'll complain about how if Biden was the one who was going to pick a justice to replace this, he already promised that it would be a black woman, and Trump's going with a white woman, so it upholds white supremacy. We all know the tactics that are coming in the next 45 days leading up to the election, and past that if Trump decides to extend this process into the lame duck session. We all know what's coming, but Amy Coney Barrett looks like, to me, the person that Trump is going to put up. Obviously, things can change. He could try to go in a more moderate direction to kind of appease the left wing, maybe find a female justice that's more in the mold of Kavanaugh. Now, even though I don't think that's going to work, I can definitely see the Republican Party putting up a Kavanaugh-like nominee, a more moderate person, to try to appease the Democrats, even though that's definitely not going to work. They're definitely going to be attacked, and throughout the rest of this presidential campaign, we're going to hear a lot more crazy promises from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden about how they're going to totally restructure the Supreme Court, because it's not fair that Orange Man, playing by the rules, got Supreme Court nominees just like any other president did when there were vacancies on the Supreme Court. That when he appointed somebody and the Senate was like, yeah, we like that appointment, they ended up seating that person on the court. Somehow that's going to be not fair. Somehow that's going to be linked to white supremacy. Somehow that's going to be the most evilest thing in the history of evil things in all of the world. Even though, again, the Democratic Party has essentially been legislating from the Supreme Court bench for decades in this country, and the Republicans, even when they've had a theoretical majority on the court, have been about 50-50 at actually picking conservative justices to go on the court. Remember, it was Roberts, a Bush nominee, who ended up agreeing that Obamacare was somehow constitutional. Remember, the Supreme Court, which had 2 Trump appointees and theoretically was majority Republican, wouldn't even hear a gun case in the last session, despite the fact that it only takes 4 nominees, or 4 justices to be more accurate, to actually hear a specific case. So the Republicans are hit or miss, but the Democrats are going to pretend that this is the end of the world, that we should all be panicked, that this is terrible, and it's definitely going to jump up above the riots to the #1 campaign issue between Biden and Trump and Kamala Harris in this election. Now, as far as this election goes, I've said time and time again that the Republicans need to hope and pray that Ruth Bader Ginsburg ends up surviving past the election, because I think this is definitely something that will be damaging to Donald Trump going into the election. The American people kind of like to feel like there's some kind of balance on the Supreme Court, and everybody's going to be lighting their hair on fire based on the prospect of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat being filled by somebody that Trump appointed. This evil, misogynist, racist, bad man, orange man bad, is going to replace the feminist icon Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And if you don't think that that message is going to be hammered home on CNN, MSNBC, and across all of these outlets, both online and mainstream, you're absolutely crazy. We're going to see glowing profiles of Ginsburg. In fact, we were already seeing, leading up to her death, glowing profiles of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and that's only going to magnify 100-fold. Joe Biden is going to not stop talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and not just because it's strategy, but just because Biden's going to forget that he was talking about her in the previous sentence and mumble through the same thing over and over again. But Kamala Harris, she's going to hammer this thing home. She's going to make this the #1 issue of this campaign, and Trump's going to be dunking and dodging and talking about how, well, I won, so therefore I get to do that, and he's going to be all smug about it because that's what Trump does. He attacks back. And I don't know if he's well suited for this kind of situation. The Obama administration was not well suited for the death of Antonin Scalia. Republicans freaked out. They warned their supporters that this would be the death of the Second Amendment because, again, the decisions around the Second Amendment, DC versus Heller, McDonald versus Chicago, were 5-4 decisions. And that ended up helping the Republicans get Donald Trump into the White House. This could have a significant impact on this election, and I said it well before the election, even before the pandemic, when the economy was roaring and Trump looked like he was going to make his way to an easy second term, that the one thing that's out of everybody's control that would definitely significantly negatively impact Trump's campaign, in that it would galvanize the left-wing base, would be the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That has happened. It has been significantly closer to the election than anybody could have expected, and it's definitely going to gin up a lot of hysteria amongst the left, and that hysteria is going to be converted into energy, and that energy is going to be converted into votes. Obviously, we're going to have to wait for some polling data on what the response to this is, because I can't imagine that some Republicans would be galvanized by this as well. But overall, I think that this death at this point in time does not help the Trump campaign going into 2020. If Trump ends up losing this election, I think that this, along with the pandemic, will be the key issue. Just like if Biden would have lost the election, I think the rioting would have been the key issue that would have been negatively impacting Joe Biden going into election day. Now look, I'm shooting this shortly after I got the news. It's actually becoming night where I live right now at this very moment, so I wouldn't be surprised at the time of me shooting this video if there weren't already protests in the streets about Donald Trump not being able to appoint somebody to the Supreme Court to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I've already seen Chuck Schumer tweet out shortly after the news broke that we shouldn't let Donald Trump fill this seat, and I've also seen a couple of statements from Republican senators saying that they wouldn't seat a Supreme Court nominee so close to the election. Honestly, I think that's nonsense. I think when push comes to shove, if they have to be the deciding vote, they're going to end up voting along party lines, because that's what we do in this country. Unless Trump nominates somebody with a significant and actually legitimate scandal attached to them, this person will be confirmed before the next president is sworn in, or before Donald Trump is sworn in for a second term. That's the move that everybody's going for. Nobody's going to let this Supreme Court nominee slip from their grasp when they have the Senate and the presidency. This is not a situation where the Republicans have the Senate and the Democrats have the presidency, or vice versa. The presidency and the Senate are controlled by the same party. We are going to get a Supreme Court nominee and replacement confirmation from the Republican Party, and if we don't, then the Republican Party is significantly weaker than anybody could have possibly imagined. So yeah, those are my thoughts. That's my snap judgment in the moment. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think that this somehow is a boon for Donald Trump? This will galvanize his base and lead him to election success in 2020? Do you think this is damaging? Or do you think that this doesn't even overtake the BLM riots and that will remain the issue, and this won't really have that much of an impact on this election? Who do you think Trump will nominate to the Supreme Court to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if anybody? Let me know all those thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked this video, then show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. Those links are in the description box of this video. The support links are there as well. This has been me giving you my hot take, hot off the presses take on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing and what it means for American politics. Wow, I'm like a breaking news wizard right here. Instant take the same night of, uploaded probably tomorrow when everybody had their take out already. Till next time.